I whistle all the time. Love singing songs. I love whistling. Amber told me this morning she opened the window. She was getting ready upstairs. She opened the window. I'm allowed to have a Mountain Dew today. My voice was completely gone last night, and I couldn't talk. My throat was swollen up. When the temperature changes, it does that to me every year, and so I tried to rest my voice. If my voice cracks today, you're not allowed to laugh. See, you went ahead and got it out. So, no, you can't laugh. That happens sometimes, but it happens more frequently when the weather goes hot, cold, hot, cold, hot, cold. It's like it's confused. But Amber was getting ready upstairs. She opened the window when I was leaving, and she whistled like she's whistling at the dogs. And I turned around, and she said, "You answer to the dog whistle." And I said, "Gosh, you got me." But I love singing and whistling and having a good time. Don't you like having a good time? It's fun to pick around. That's why you got to come to that ugly Christmas sweater party and laugh and have a good time with us there. Last year, it was the best event of the year. Go to 2 Corinthians chapter 5. If you're a visitor, you're here today, I'm so glad you're here. And I am even more glad that the person that brought you cares about you enough and your walk with Christ and their love for you that they invited you to come and went to extra lengths to take you out to dinner today and pay for your meal. And then to, okay, if they didn't offer that yet, I'm not throwing them under the bus. But one of the first times I ever went to church, hadn't been a long time. I was a lost man wandering around in drugs and darkness. A guy named Sam Hairston invited me to church, and I hadn't been in years, and I really didn't want to go, but he had been talking to me about the gospel, and it was kind of making me think about my spiritual state. So one day he gave me an offer I couldn't refuse. Come to church with me, and in the morning, we'll meet at Golden Corral first. I'll buy your breakfast. I said, now that's a deal. I don't care about the church part as much, but if you're going to buy Golden Corral, I'll be there. That price has gone up. I don't go there anymore. I can't do it. It used to be $8.99. Now it's $15, $45 for a family there. So, hey, take your friends out to eat. Tell them to come to church with you, hear about the kingdom. And that's a great way to reach people around food and the gospel. Today we're in the middle of a two-part series. We're finishing up this series on heaven and how things will end. What I wanted to do for you in the next 2 weeks is describe heaven so vividly for you that you will feel like you're there momentarily. Now that's pretty amazing if I can pull that off. But I think that I can, and one of the reasons why I've started to develop these vivid, explicit details with illustrations and pictures and things to try to help you out is I always had the weird view of heaven that everybody else kind of had. You're growing up, you look in the books, you see the clouds, you see some light and a little thing floating around with a halo on it, and you're like, oh, cool, I'm going there. You know, I had a friend that goes here today that when he was 6, he would ask me these biblical questions. What's heaven going to be like? And I said, hey, bud, what do you think heaven's going to be like? I'll never forget the little 6-year-old saying, I know what heaven's going to be like. The clouds are going to be like clouds of milk and Oreos, and you can jump from cloud to cloud and fly around. I said, that would be cool, bud. I bet that's exactly what it's going to be like. You know, at 6, I don't really correct them and stuff, you know, like, you're wrong. You know, you just have some fun with it. Let them stir their imaginations, you know. And that's kind of the view that you get. And then when you see movies and cartoons and depictions and the little stuff, you have this view that you're going to, you know, play a harp. You know, you turn into angels. Here's a fun fact. You don't turn into an angel when you die. I hate to tell you that, but if you're here today and you're a visitor and you don't know my style, one of my approaches is I try to bust the Christian myths on purpose so that you can actually know what is true and what isn't. And so the idea that you hear sometimes at funerals or from people that my loved one became an angel and God needed another angel, that's just not how that works. That's not from the Bible. Yeah, and you shouldn't tell people false things to make them feel better. I think when you're a kid, you can let them slide on a lot of that stuff. But we're adults, and we're Christians. And our theology is derived from the Bible, not from mythology. You don't get the right and the privilege to make up your own view of heaven and then concoct that and perpetuate that to people. So don't say things that are not true. You don't become angels. Your loved one's not an angel. It's much better than that. You think it'd be cool to be an angel. Fly around, wings, halo, all that cool stuff. That's nothing. You know what's amazing? The angels are perplexed at what you are. You are a recipient of the grace and the mercy of God, something they never received. They had one shot at this. They were created just like you were. Angels in heaven. Lucifer was there. Satan was there. He was an angel. Lucifer. Angels, God, heaven, all the cool stuff. And the Bible tells us about a rebellion in heaven that caused Lucifer and a third of the angels to get cast out, become fallen angels. And that's where you get people like Connie. No, I'm just kidding. I haven't thrown you under the bus in a while. I had to. Fallen angels, demons, Lucifer, they get kicked out. Rebellion in heaven. No grace extended. No second chances. No opportunity for salvation. One shot, sealed in either status. The angels that survived that rebellion are sealed in a permanent status of the presence of God, and they can't continually fall. They're perplexed at you. God gives you grace they never had a shot at. That's amazing. So don't say weird stuff to make people feel better. Say what's true, because it's even more amazing than the little weird stuff that we tell them. You are a recipient of the grace and the mercy of God. You're going to sing a song in heaven that angels can't sing. You're going to sing songs today at the end of the service that angels can't sing. They can't sing your song about the amazing grace of God that saved a wretch like me. I once was lost, but now I'm found. Was blind, but now I see. They can't sing that. You can. And next time you sing it, don't sing it like this. Amazing grace. That's ridiculous. Do you realize how special it is? Your position and your status and the fact that Jesus would die for your sins. Next time you sing Amazing Grace. Are we singing Amazing Grace today? Okay, next time you sing it, sing. You know, I've always felt like charismatics should be more Baptist and Baptists should be more charismatic in certain areas, because I've been in both circles. I got saved in the charismatic circle, and they were exciting. Boy, they were wild. They were wild. They were too exciting. I mean, a little too much. If you've got that background, you know what I mean. I like to pick around too. But then I ended up in Baptist circles where theology was more of a focus, and that's critical. I think that's more critical than excitement. Excitement's important, but excitement is like a sugar high. You get high on Sunday, and then on Monday, because you ain't got no theology as the rooted foundation of your life, you're going back down to the pits. Sugar. What you need is meat and substance. You need theology. You need sound doctrine. So I moved circles. Baptists are more of that, but they're also typically more boring. But I am a Baptist. I am more boring. So I'm one of you. It's okay. I'm just saying. I've always thought, wouldn't it be cool if you could bridge the best of both of those worlds? People that were actually excited about the grace of God in their life, that drew some type of reaction in worship. Something. I mean, geez. Like you're sawing logs. Like you hate your life. You're singing a song on the screen, you know, Victory in Jesus. You sing it like you hate your life. And I'm like, what's going on in here? I don't get it. I don't get that. I don't get that. Now, you don't got to run the aisles. And don't speak in tongues if it's fake. You got to do all the weird stuff if it's fake. Don't do any of that. But I'm just saying, there should be something in you that is excited about the salvation that you have. And if you're singing a song about the grace of God and it doesn't stir up any joy in your heart, that's a problem, I think. It's a heart problem you got to work through. You got to figure it out. I can't do it for you. I'm just perplexed by it. The angels, look, you will not be an angel when you die. Your kids don't turn into angels. If your kid passes away, kid doesn't become an angel either. I'm sorry for all of you that have lost loved ones. Carter was sick over the last couple of weeks, and he had some weird symptoms. It wasn't normal things. And I won't tell you what they are because it makes me weak in my stomach. But, I won't tell you what they were. They were weird, and then they prolonged, and then they were like on and off again. So it was really strange, and it met none of the things that we were familiar with. And as a parent, you think these things. Now, you don't say it out loud, but you think it, especially when it goes on for 7-9 days. You think, oh gosh, what if this is something worse than what it could be? For the first time ever in my life, you just think it. For just, moments in your life, you think, gosh, what if I was ever to lose one of my kids? For those of you who have had that happen, I can't imagine. I don't know how you get over that. Maybe you haven't gotten over that. But that's going to be part of what I'm going to get at today in this sermon. What is so exciting about heaven? Well, today we're going to be in 2 Corinthians 5, and what I want to do for you today is, I think, to most vividly explain the majesty of heaven, I need to do it in 2 sermons. Where in the first sermon I explained to you predominantly the things that are not there. And by telling you the things that are not there, that won't happen, it'll help you to understand the beauty of it next week when you see the things that will happen. So today we're going to look at a lot of what won't happen. What won't be in heaven? There'll be no more death. There will be no more death. No more death. No more dying. No more war. No more militaries needed. There won't be any more PTSD vets committing suicide at 20%. There won't be, for any women who are in this room, there won't be any more stillborn children. No more miscarriages. I'll never forget the first time one of the women's health ministry speakers came here and told me something I never would have known. One of our opening statements was 25% of women have a miscarriage in their life. Now, why don't I know that statistic? Well, for 2 reasons. I'm not a woman. And number 2, you don't talk about it. Why would you talk about that? I mean, some of you do. I'm not saying it's bad to do that. Matter of fact, maybe it would be helpful in a sense of healing for you and for others to talk about it. I'm not saying you shouldn't, but of course, look, you don't meet somebody and say, hey, my name's Sue. What's your name? Oh, my name's Jan. And hey, guess what? I like to walk in the park with my kids, play in the dog, and guess what? I lost a child. You don't talk about it. And I didn't know that. I wish I would have known that a long time ago in my life, but infertility is much higher than you think, and people don't talk about that. And then miscarriages too, and some of you have lost loved ones through that. That would be very painful. Women, you all are amazing. I would never have a kid. I would never get pregnant. We'd be adopting something if we were lucky, but I would never have a kid. I can't believe that y'all are so amazing that you are willing to have a child. Man, that's amazing. And for those of you who have lost loved ones, good news. There'll be no more death, no more dying, no more miscarriage, stillborn children, no more abortions. There'll be no more depression. Depression is a state of sadness that overwhelms your being. I've got a friend who's here today that has talked about that openly. And I've never had it, so I don't know what it's like. And the friend that's here today that's talked about that openly says it's like a dark cloud that hovers over your head and you can't get away from it. And that it can take you to a place that is so dark and so sad that this individual said he actually found himself in a place where he only knew that God loved him, but it was hard to even believe that. There'll be no more depression. My mom had depression. She had a really bad case of bipolar disorder as a result of her upbringing. So some people have depression as an inherited trait to some degree, but then it takes trauma to trigger it. And my mom had a major traumatic upbringing. I wouldn't even begin to try to describe that to you here today. It was really bad. She had bipolar disorder. She fought it all of her life. And I remember as a kid growing up, she couldn't have a job. She didn't have any friends. She would go to the church. The church tried really hard, but she couldn't really have friends at church either. She was up and down. She was here and there. She was all over the place. And she would go to hospitals to try to get that fixed. And Charter used to be a place. I think they shut all those down now. She would go to Charter to try to seek the highest professional medical care that was available. They would even do these things called electric shock therapy. I mean, this is how bad it was. And they would shave your head and actually electrocute your brain to stimulate it into positive thinking for 1 month. It would last 30 days. I mean, it's just mind-blowing, the level of depression and sadness that had settled into her life that was inescapable. And she had the pill box, with the 30 pills in it and everything. And I'll never forget when she was at home all the time. She didn't have friends, didn't have a job, and was always in a state of sadness with just momentary days of, feeling good about herself and happiness. And for some reason, this image, there's a lot of images I remember that were great. I mean, we had great times with my mom. I'll never forget this, though, when she actually passed away. The next day, I went into her room as a 15-year-old boy. I was really sad. I was depressed, sad. I remember just laying in her bed in her spot where she laid. And she had this green pillow. I really don't know why, green pillow. So I was moving the pillow around to get comfortable there. And there was a stain on the wall where that green pillow was because she was there all the time, sitting in that room, couldn't leave, state of darkness. From trauma she experienced as a kid. Nothing that was even her fault. She didn't even do anything. Just things with parents and issues and things. In heaven, there'll be no more death, no more war, no PTSD vets committing suicide, no miscarriages, no abortions, no depression, no more cancer, no pancreatic cancer, no more coronavirus, no more masks. You don't have to wear a mask in heaven. Hey, there you go. That'll get a charismatic response out of a Baptist church. No more masks, no more vaccinations, no vaccine mandates, no domestic abuse. No active shooters, no terrorism, no sexual abuse. There'll be no rape. There won't be sex trafficking. There won't be any opioids. You won't need pain medication. I've buried too many friends addicted to opioids that could not get it under control. There won't be any pain medications. There won't be any addictions. There won't be any messy divorces, no adultery, no pornography, no broken homes, no shame, and no guilt because the curse of sin has been lifted. There'll be no more teenagers meddling around in darkness. Satanic activity, black magic, witchcraft, which is all on the rise now as a interesting I can't figure out the fascination to it, except that I've always been a little mischievous and rebellious. When I was a kid, I told you I like to stretch the boundaries and see where the boundaries were and then test all that. So that's always been my personality, to prank people and be mischievous and rebel and all that kind of stuff. So there's something interesting about human nature that likes rebellion. Remember, Isaiah 53 tells us something about yourself that you may not like, but you might want to figure out. We all, like sheep, are prone to stray, each one of us to our own way. But the Lord has laid on Christ the iniquity of us all. What does that tell us about our nature? Here's something you need to know about your nature. Your nature is made up of a DNA chain, genetics, and brain physiology that is prone to wandering. There's something in you that likes rebellion. So that's the war of your life. I don't know what the fascination is with Satanism, the witchcraft, the dark stuff, and all that. And Travis Scott and all that stuff. Except this. Here is one part of it, I think, that maybe is part of the equation. You got to realize that if you're going to play with darkness and try to tap into witchcraft, spells, magic, and all that stuff, it's actually real. And so you go into it, in your opinion, with playful intentions, no ill intent. And the further you get into it, you start to realize there's actually something here. And because it's real, it's fascinating to you. And because your flesh is prone to stray, you like the darkness. And so you continue on in that path. There won't be any darkness. Hey, Satan, he's not going to be there. He already got kicked out once, and he doesn't get a trip back. No Satanism, no racism, no injustice, no armed robberies, no more locked doors. Some of y'all remember when you grew up, you didn't have to lock your doors. In this, this is 30 years ago. How many of y'all didn't lock your house doors when you were growing up? Oh my gosh, it's like 70%, and how many of you don't now? So I can come by later and get no, I'm just kidding. I know some people that don't now. I know, some of y'all, I won't say the names because then you'll figure out the address. So I know some of y'all leave your keys in the truck because this is the environment you grew up in. In heaven, there will not be any of these things. You won't have to lock your doors. No armed robberies. No more prisons. No courtrooms. Police officers are going to have to find a new job. All you probation officers, corrections facilities, and land, and you're going to have to find a new career path when you get to heaven. No more politicians lying to you or dividing you against each other to get a vote. No corrupt governments. Hey, no Republicans, no Democrats. There won't be any. There's no politicians. No politicians volleying for your vote. No corrupt governments, because Christ will be the King of Kings. There'll be no false prophets. No wolves in sheep's clothing. No corrupt pastors. So Joel Osteen won't be there. There'll be no onions. There'll be no baldness. And there'll be no termites. Praise God. We've been battling termites for a couple weeks. Oh man. Fleas. We weren't battling termites. No. Fleas. Won't be any fleas. There might be termites. No onions, no baldness. Can you tell that I'm kind of shifting that around to myself there? 2 Corinthians 5 tells us some beautiful things about heaven that will help us out as we paint this picture. Those are a lot of the things that will not be there. Now, the concept of heaven has to be broken down into two categories. So here's where you got to pay attention. We're going to get into the meat real quick. Here's what you got to remember this, or write this down, or check it out later, whatever you want to do. You got to break heaven down into two categories. There is the intermediate state and there is the eternal state. Heaven is a title given to us through the Scriptures for a doctrine. The doctrine is broken down into two categories, though. When people talk about going to heaven, they don't really think about it in terms of categories. But here's what the way the Bible breaks that down. 2 Corinthians chapter 5 tells us about the first state of being. In verse 1 it says, "For we know that if the tent that is our earthly home is destroyed, we have a building from God, a house not made with hands, eternal in the heavens. For in this tent we groan, longing to put our heavenly dwelling on, if indeed by putting it on we may not found to be naked. For while we are still in this tent, we groan, being burdened, not that we would be unclothed, but that we would further be clothed, so that what is mortal may be swallowed up by life. He who has prepared us for this very thing is God, who has given us the Spirit as a guarantee." So we are always of good courage, for we know that while we are at home in the body, we are away from the Lord. For we walk by faith and not by sight. Yes, we are of good courage, and we would rather be away from the body, that's important, away from the body, and at home with the Lord. So whether we are at home or away, we make it our aim to please Christ. For we must all appear before the judgment seat of Christ, so that we may receive what is due for what we have done in the body, whether good or evil. So there's one of your primary passages about the first state of being. The first category that I was going to tell you about is called the intermediate state. Now, what is that? So when people talk about going to heaven, they could mean one of two things. What is heaven? Well, in the Bible, you have three heavens that are described. The first heaven is called sky. That's Psalm chapter 104, verse 12. David talks about the birds in the heavens that fly in the heaven. Where do birds fly? They fly in the sky. So sky is heaven. That's heaven number one. Now you have a second heaven. This is outer space. Isaiah chapter 13, verse 10. Isaiah is praising the majesty of God who hung the stars in the heaven. Well, are the stars in the sky where the birds fly? Nope. So now here's a second heaven. You got heaven number one, sky. Heaven number two, outer space. Which will be interesting. If we end up going to Mars, does that mean you went to heaven? Outer space? I don't know. That's a different question. We'll get to that one later. We'll let them figure that one out later if we go to Mars. Two heavens. Third heaven, the place where God and the angels dwell currently, and that's kind of important. Place where they dwell currently, 2 Corinthians chapter 12, Paul says he went up to the third heaven. He didn't go to the first heaven. He didn't go to the second heaven. He says, I went up to the third heaven, and I saw things which cannot be described and things which I may not utter with words. He got to see the place where God dwells and could not explain it with words. Either he was not allowed to, or there are not words to describe it. Probably a little bit of both. That's the third heaven. So here's what's interesting. Where do we go when we die? Well, it's easy. Everybody knows this. You've all been to a funeral. Y'all had a pastor that was there. He says they went to heaven. Well, where did they go? What does that mean? Where did they go? Where is it? Well, heaven is the place where God and the angels dwell currently. It is a immaterial place of spiritual being. I know that doesn't really help you out. It's probably going to confuse you first before it helps you out. But it is the immaterial place of spiritual dwelling. Immaterial means not flesh and bones. And that's why when the Bible talks about there being angels and demons around us, Satan on the earth somewhere trying to wreak havoc, because angels and demons are immaterial, you don't see them. They don't have flesh and bones. They're immaterial. That's what it means to be spiritual, for your spirit, for your soul. Your soul is immaterial. So when you die, you go to that place. You go to wherever that is. Where is it? Well, some people say, hey, how many of you have ever been to downtown Winston? Who's ever been to downtown Winston to eat or to go to the baseball game? Okay, well, that's not where heaven is. All right. How many of you have ever been to, who's been to Bill's Truck Stop? Man, there better be all hands raised in here. You've been to Bill's Truck Stop. Well, some scholars relate their food to the marriage supper of the Lamb, so that might be really close. The food there, Bill's Truck Stop might be close to heaven. Have you ever seen Paradise Motel? I feel so bad every time I pick about this. If somebody's the owner of that, I'm just having fun with it. I just thought it was so funny. I'm driving down 85 going towards, I guess, High Point. Where's that, Doug? Because you live out there. Yeah, going that way. And I look to the left one day and see a motel that's not really in the best shape in the world there. And then I looked at the sign up in the sky, and the sign said Paradise Motel. I thought, geez, that's not paradise. If it is, I don't want to go there. I don't know. But I would go there if you've ever been there. I mean, I'd go there. Me and Amber have stayed in some interesting. I'm cheap. When we go on vacation, I'm going for the cheapest possible option. We've almost died at least 20 times on vacations. She hates going on vacation with me. I've started to improve some of that. Paradise Motel, that's not heaven. Bill's Truck Stop might be close. Hey, locals. But where is it? What is it? Where is it? Well, it's somewhere out there. Could it be farther than outer space? Who knows? Who knows? Nobody knows. It's immaterial, so you don't see it. You're not flying through. If Elon Musk develops a little rocket that goes out there flying around, you don't fly through it and say, ooh, look at that. On the left we have heaven, and on the right we have hell, and over there's the... It's not that. That's not how it works. It's immaterial, so you don't see it, but it is a place where God and the angels dwell. It could actually be, in that sense, right above the atmosphere for some reason it could be, and it wouldn't matter. That could be where it is. It's immaterial. So I don't say this a lot, but maybe some of y'all will like this if you're nerds or you're science people or you like, but it's kind of like a fifth dimension of reality. 2D objects don't understand 3D objects. 3D objects would not be able to understand 4D objects, and 4D objects would not be able to understand and relate to 5D objects unless they were 5D. So kind of like a fifth dimension of reality that you will get to experience one day. That's where Christians go when they die. They go to be with God. But here's the interesting thing. You don't get a resurrected body until the end. So what are you going to do? You know? What are you going to do? You don't have a resurrected body. What are you going to have? I don't know, but it's not a resurrected body. It looks like... See, now the Bible's really silent here, so I'm just going to have a little bit of fun, and then you can basically throw everything I say out here for the next few minutes, because I just like to have fun, but it's just speculation, and the Bible is basically completely silent about the intermediate state. There's little to no passages about the intermediate state. You get Paul talking about it, and he says, I can't describe it. Well, thanks, Paul. I kind of wanted to know what it was like. I mean, so if you don't get a glorified body until the end, that's 1 Corinthians 15:50, you get a glorified body at the resurrection. Before that, you don't get one. So what is it like? Some type of immaterial, spiritual state of existence. Much like God, the angels, the Father, the Spirit, the Son are, right now. Maybe you're just flying around. Who knows? You just don't get much. You don't get a lot. But you'll be with God until the resurrection. And that's why, and I can prove that. So some people believe in what's called soul sleep. There's two opinions about the intermediate state. There's only two options. You either sleep in the grave until the resurrection, or you're conscious and you're with God. So either one could be true. I think soul sleep is less true, less possible. But you're not a bad person if you believe that. 1 Thessalonians 3, Paul says, I don't want you to be uninformed about those who have fallen asleep. And he's talking about the loved ones of the people who've passed away. And he calls it a type of sleep. And so this is where the soul sleep concept came from. You go to the grave, you sleep. Next thing you do, it's like when you went to sleep last night. Now, you went to sleep last night, you didn't count 6 hours. You weren't looking at your clock saying, gosh, this has been a long night. You were asleep, and the next thing you know, you wake up. So soul sleep people, they believe you go to sleep, you wake up, and you're with God at the resurrection. I don't think that's true because of this. Two things. In 1 Corinthians 15, when Paul talks about that resurrection where you get your glorified body, he says, for we will not all sleep, but we will all be changed in the moment, in the twinkling of an eye, at the last trumpet, when Christ descends from heaven with the shout of an angel and Michael and the trumpet of God. Then those of us who are alive and remain will be caught up together to meet Christ in the air. And in this moment, it says he will bring with him those who have fallen asleep. He's going to bring with him those who have fallen asleep. With him, Christ, he's in heaven, and he's bringing those who have fallen asleep with him to the clouds. So what happens, if you die before the resurrection, you're with God, and when Christ returns, you receive glorified body as those who are on the earth, if they were saved at the resurrection, they receive a glorified body. They go up, you come down. And you meet Christ in the air and you get to have a good time. It's supposed to be a really good time. And here's another reason why I don't believe in soul sleep. Again, you're not a bad person because Paul uses the word sleep, and I think it confuses people a little bit about what happens when you die. But Jesus tells the thief on the cross, today you will be with me in paradise. So I know what people say. Every time I say that, they say, well, paradise isn't heaven. Well, that's a whole different sermon. I get it. But what I'm saying here is, if Jesus tells the thief, today you will be with me in paradise, that means there is a conscious place of existence that the thief will go to be with Jesus. He's not sleeping in a grave. He will be conscious and he will be with Christ. So I think that ends up being heaven. And, so I don't go with soul sleep. I think you go to be with Christ in an immaterial state of existence where you don't get a lot of descriptions. And that's called the intermediate state. Now, next week, we're going to actually talk about heaven, the third heaven, the eternal state. Today, we talked about the intermediate state in 2 Corinthians 5 here. We must shed this tent, verse 2. You must shed this tent to inherit your eternal tent. For while we were still in this tent, we groaned, being burdened, not that we would be unclothed, but that we would be further clothed, so that what is mortal may be swallowed up by life. So here in this picture, Paul is telling you that your body is like a tent, and you're going to get rid of the tent one day, and you're going to get a new tent, and the new tent's really nice. One of the things that I think is interesting about what he says here in verse 2 is, for while we are in this tent, we groan, longing to put on our heavenly dwelling. We groan. How many of you are groaning for heaven? You know, I'm not so sure I believe you if you say you are. I hope you are. I don't know if I am like I should be. Paul says, while we are in this earthly tent, we are groaning for the tent that we are to inherit in the heavenly dwelling place. And what does he mean by that? There is an inward pain and angst in this life as a believer here on earth. The inward pain and angst is that you could be with God in heaven, and that you could be with the loved ones and the angels with God in heaven. There's an angst there. And I'm not so sure I see that. I don't know if I see Christians groaning in pain about their existence here on earth. It seems like we're enjoying it way too much. Way too much. We're building our kingdom here, not our kingdom there. I don't know if I see that as much. Well, I wish I did, and I do see it, but I don't know if I see it as much. Not in Christians' lives here, and not even in my own life. I wish I did. Maybe we should groan more. And maybe if we don't have that inward angst, there's something in our lives that should be repentant and broken about the fact that we don't actually desire heaven like we should. And if we did, wouldn't that make us much more evangelistic? Wouldn't it? If you really did, you really desired heaven, if you groaned about it, you lost sleep. If you lost sleep tonight about the inward pain and sadness you face here on earth as you are apart from Christ, wouldn't it make you much more evangelistic? Or would you keep saying things like, well, gosh, I invited them to church, they didn't come, so I'll just give up. I'll just pray for them. I'll just pray for them. You got to pray for them. Yeah, pray for them. Pray for them. That's what Jesus tells you to do. He does tell you to do that. But what does he really tell you to do? The Great Commission, he says, lay it all on the line. Give up everything for the kingdom. Go find lost people. Sell your house. Move to Africa. Go to Ukraine. Go to New York. Go across. Sell everything you have and be a missionary. Destitute, impoverished, with little to no clothes on your back for the kingdom. And that's the type of inward angst and groaning that we saw with Paul, we saw with the disciples. They left their families to go travel around to be tortured and killed for being a believer. They really had the inward angst. I just don't see that in my own life, I'll tell you, if I was being honest. He says we groan for that day. Oh, that Christians would get back to that. For we're not at home. How many of you ever been on vacation? And vacation's fun, you know. My favorite vacation ever was St. John. If you've never been to St. John, you got to go there. But I don't know if you can really stay there. We went to St. Thomas, and you can stay there. That's real easy, accessible, and decent, fairly priced, you know. And St. Thomas smoked the Bahamas. Man, it smoked it. But we hopped on a little boat, and for $30 went across to the next island, St. John, and it was supposed to be more remote, more private and everything, and so we got off and we were going down to this little beach that was supposed to be remote and private. We got out there and there was nobody on it. We looked all the way down, and it was the most beautiful thing I've ever seen with my two eyes. I've never seen a more beautiful sight than this. It was either called Trunk Bay or something like that, but we crystal clear blue waters. We swam out there. You could float around. You could see down to the bottom at 50 feet. At one point, I said, Amber, you stay on top of the water. I'm going to swim as far down as I can, see if I can touch the bottom. And I couldn't touch it, and she could still see me all the way down. I mean, then there was islands in the distance and everything. You definitely got to go to St. Thomas, St. John if you can. Do you know what's interesting about vacation? You've all been on vacation. Now, unless you're a kid, this will be true for anybody that's not a kid. You're on vacation, and it's great. Vacation is great. But man, there's nothing like coming home to sleep in your bed that night unless you have busted water pipes. You get home, the floor's flooded out, the basement's ruined. Okay, besides that, you know, nothing like sleeping in your bed and getting home and then you get those clothes washed and you tuck into that nice, comfortable. Nothing like being home. Vacation's great. Vacation's not fun if it's permanent there. It's not fun. You miss your people. You miss your friends. You miss your loved ones. You miss your house, your memories, your sentimental objects. You miss your upbringing, miss your culture. The Bible says we're not at home. You're not at home. Now, you're on vacation right now. For some of you, it may not be a great one, but you're on vacation. Right now, you're on vacation. And there's something in you that's supposed to desire home, and heaven is your home. And that desire will cause you to sacrifice many things for the kingdom in life. That is the place that we want to find ourselves in today. Doug, would you guys help me close? And I need Daniel and Eric's help for this. Daniel and Eric, y'all got to come up here to help me out with one thing.